Monday morning. It is Monday morning. Yes, sirree, Bob. It's the 16th. It's Monday. It's June 16th. The number 16. There you go. We are more than halfway through the month of June. July, August, September. Oh my God. In 90 days, there'll be another iPhone out. A new iPhone 17. It's supposed to be, well, they're going to make it, you know, it used to be made out of stainless steel. And they would machine it out of a solid piece of stainless steel. Ultra rigid shape. Hello. There you go, you can see me on the side. You see right there, you can see the actual time. And this little, let's see, where is it? This thing's in the way. You see right there? 2 minutes and 43 seconds. That's the elapsed time. That's alright. I got this boom microphone. Boom, boom. It stretches from over there, comes all the way over here. And we have the world famous Electro Voice. If you watch the Will Kane show, he's got an Electro Voice microphone. The same exact microphone that you're hearing Jimmy talk with. Everybody, happy Father's Day, yes. Yep. Father's Day. I was supposed to go to Father's Day dinner last night. And I wasn't feeling well. I had to cancel. We had to cancel Father's Day dinner. You know, we like to get together where at least the four of us down here can be in one place at the same time. The mama bear likes to do that. So, but I couldn't, I don't know, I felt like nauseous, you know, semi-nauseous for several hours, so I don't know, maybe I had a breakfast of tomatoes and mozzarella with a little drizzle. You know that drizzle? It tasted magnificent, but you know, maybe it feels sick. I felt sick all day, so no, I don't think I'll do that again. That's a shame. I really thought I liked that, but. So, Israel is pummeling Iran, knocking out its ability to destroy other countries. It's knocking out its ability to create atomic bombs. Apparently they were just days and weeks away from creating an atomic bomb. They were, you know, this business, well, we'll let you refine it a little, baloney. They don't need refined, uranium. They have more oil than God made green apples. So if they need nuclear for their nuclear power plants, which nuclear is not weapons grade, they can buy it, just like everybody else does. You just buy the canisters of the nuclear material that you would put in a nuclear reactor, and that's it. You are not going to manufacture it, because we can't trust you they were, you have these centrifuges that you spin it, and then, you can separate the most, the concentrated forms of certain parts of the uranium spectrum of stuff that you can obtain, which is a mixture of uranium materials. So you spin it so that you get, a particular type of uranium, which is capable of being jammed up against plutonium, and it creates a bam, no. So Israel, hour by hour, is dismantling Iran's ability to refine uranium, and they've been studying this. Mossad is those people. They are the intelligence of intelligence agencies. Mossad is the equivalent of the CIA, of the United States. Take the CIA and the FBI, add them together, and refine them, and you've got the Mossad. And I had the privilege of, in my banking days, of financing a retired general from Mossad, and a fine gentleman indeed. Oh yeah. We spent a lot of hours together. I was extremely interested in, just talking to him about all kinds of things. We would deal with our banking business, and I'd bring a folder along with me when we'd have lunch, and then once we finished our banking business, I would close the folder and move it over, to my left side, and then I'd sit there and look over at him, and he'd look over at me, and we'd just start talking about world events, international events. No one giving up any secrets on each other, but he was such an extremely interesting person to have the privilege of talking to, and I provided him all kinds of financing, in the United States. If I remember correctly, he was this is, you look at this and say what? He was in the business. He had, if I remember right, he had the right to manufacture Revlon lipsticks in certain countries in South America. He had marked out somehow or other. I forget how this happened. He explained it to me, and of course I don't remember because it's somewhat irrelevant. But so he had the he had agreements where he marked out, a huge chunk of South America so he would buy millions millions and billions of these little aluminum tubes. It was, the ladies, they turn the thing and then the lipstick comes out. So you had to buy the tubes. Revlon made the tubes. And then Revlon made the lipstick. The chemical. The color. You have color and you have the fact that it would, at STP, at standard temperature and pressure. Remember STP? I explained that to everybody a long time ago. Yeah. Sea level, that's the pressure. And the standard temperature is like 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's 68, 78, 80 degrees, 85 degrees Fahrenheit. The waxy material that made the lipstick would be, a semi-solid, so they could, the ladies could apply the color to their lips. Hence, lipstick. Well, the stick part was embedded in these aluminum cylinders, and you twist this little gear in the bottom of the lipstick, and then the lipstick would the exposed waxy material with a very specific color would pop up, So there was a process in manufacturing, the lipstick material that would be inserted into the aluminum cylinder. But he would buy 55-gallon drums of each color, and there was a whole array of colors. Like the rainbow. Oh my God! And he'd buy this, part of the financing package that I provided for him was so he had the capital to buy all these 55-gallon drums of this lipstick material. And he had a warehouse in Miami, a large one, where all these drums of lipstick, the color, the waxy color, was loaded in these gallon drums. 55-gallon. That's a big 55-gallon drum is like a drum that they transport crude oil in. Yeah. So you had these warming vats, because you'd have to submerge these 55-gallon drums in, I figured out how that went, but, like tubs of water to warm up the 55-gallon drum, because it wouldn't pour out. At standard temperature and pressure, it's a solid. It's the lipstick, would maintain its shape at STP. So they'd have to warm it up to, like 120, 130 degrees, something like that, which then would put it into a liquid state. So you could pour it out of the, the 55-gallon drums and pipe it into this machine, pump it into this machine that would form the lipstick shape, and then chill it back to STP, a little cooler actually, and so these could be inserted into the aluminum cylinders, and then that would be encased in a nice exterior. And wham bam, then you have the packaging, He had a factory that manufactured freaking lipsticks. He was a former general of Mossad. He'd making lipsticks. Go figure. But he made a fortune, because he would sell, millions of these lipsticks to everywhere all over South America. Not in the United States. It was strictly, international business. Yeah. So that was one piece of financing I did. Another piece of financing was, we bought a bunch of condos for him and his family. Yep. Bought 5 or 6 condos. He was a wealthy person. So this financing package was safe and sound, solid person, excellent credentials, and excellent character. We invested to get him to the end of time. And he was exactly who he said he was. I mean, you see him, he was like Wall Street. We would have our lunch meetings, he was dressed up. He looked like he just stepped out of Wall Street. 55-year-old gentleman, 58-year-old maybe. I was, a little bit younger than he was. I don't know why I'm talking about this particular person, but I guess because we have this, the precision by which the Mossad people are. I mean, the way he operated his business was a beautiful precision method, and the Mossad, his Secret Service, the Israeli Secret Service. Mossad, they had targets marked, the GPS coordinates. They know which window to fly the missile into. And these incredible underground facilities, not to worry. Because, you can fly these missiles sideways into an underground facility, and then blow up, and then seal it off, so that no one can come and go. So you find the emergency exit, you find the main entrance. I mean, these people have to come and go. They may be living quarters underground, whatever. And then, of course, we have Moab, M-O-A-B, the mother of all bombs. It is the largest munition that is non-nuclear. There is no larger bomb than Moab. It weighs like 26,000 pounds, and it could, when you drop it, when it gets launched from a jet airplane, a supersonic jet airplane, it gets launched, with a certain amount of forward motion. It has a laser-guided tool in the front of it, so that when you launch it, it will go exactly where it is prescribed to go, according to the GPS coordinates. And it can go down about 400 feet of refined concrete. It'll penetrate all that and then explode. So it'll be like the mother of all earthquakes, and it'll shake the crap out of the ground and collapse the underground structure, so that if anybody is in there, that'll be their grave if they don't get vaporized with the blast. And of course it's underground, so and when you see the slow motion, of course the military has slow motion of these bombs, entering the earth, and it just gets like absorbed, like it's dropping through the ocean, and then about a second later, after it it slows down from 1100 feet per second to 0 feet per second, and then it explodes deep underneath the earth. It'll take care of those underground nuclear facilities that are used to create the bombs that they're supposed to be not making. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be one. You could do two of them. Israel has several of these. There are only about, if I remember correctly, about 14 of them. And I think we shipped 2 of them to Israel. They're 26,000 pounds apiece, so, they're rather heavy. And they're, like 12 feet tall, and, 2 or 3 feet in diameter, filled with an incredible explosive. And the shell casing, the casing of the munition is designed, to penetrate reinforced concrete structures and go deep, underground, and then explode. And the pressure, the shock wave, the pressure is very intense. So anybody that's down there is dead, because all their capillaries will just explode. So if there are any technicians down there, they're a goner. Even if the facility itself is not completely disintegrated, everybody underground will be scrambled eggs. I don't know how else to put it. You just drop. If you're standing up, walking around with a clipboard in your hands, whoosh, you just drop to the ground because all your capillaries kind of explode. I mean, you don't explode like you're in outer space. All the capillaries just pop inside your body, not necessarily breaking your skin. It's all internal. So, internal bleeding is like 100% internal bleeding. Everything just stops. Your brain stops. Your heart doesn't pump anymore because all the muscle has been disintegrated internally because of the shock wave. The pressure from the explosion sends a shock wave through the grounds, the subterranean. So that's what's going to happen to some of these underground facilities. And of course, Mossad has been watching, they can watch from satellites because, people have to come and go, And they know who's going and they know who's coming. And they just, they make note of the where they're coming and going from. It could be from inside of a building, but they know. I mean, that's what intelligence officers do. They embed themselves in the Iranian society. So they may even have jobs, like double agents. They may even have jobs, working in some of the facilities. I don't know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm just telling you approximately how this happens. And it's it's scary how certain procedures, they've been wanting to take out these facilities for several years, and they've been investigating this and taking notes for several years, and they can see what's coming and what's going and what the behavior is, and who's being hired, and who the high-tech officers are that in the Iranian military, if you will, who are creating the science behind the spinning of the process for the purification of uranium for the purposes of making bomb-grade material. When you get past 60% concentration, it is believed that you're entering the realm of bomb-grade material. Not that 60% is the number. It's a higher number that you need to attain. But if you're going past 60%, then you're not refining uranium for the purposes of filling up a nuclear reactor that produce electricity, for example. It doesn't need uranium past a 60% concentration. So you go past that, you go, now you're not doing uranium for nuclear reactors for peaceful electricity for your society. You're doing it because you want to make bombs, because you want to kill Israel. I mean, that's their mission in life, to eliminate Israel. That's why all their missiles and so forth have been aimed at, where people live. The Israelis are bombing things that have military implications. They're not bombing civilian centers of population. Not trying to wipe out the population. Israel actually likes the population. You just don't like the regime. We need regime change. That's the magic. So every day that Israel is, on the mission of completing its task of completely eliminating Iran's capability, they've been waiting for this opportunity for a decade. And I don't think there's any organization, like the G7. I think the G7 was G8, but I don't think Putin's invited. So it's G8 minus 1 equals G7. They're meeting in Canada today, actually. For 4 or 5 days of talks. And they're going to sit around a big table and they're going to vote on whether Israel should be allowed to continue its operations. Well, I got news for you, folks. You can stick in your ear, because Israel will not stop until this task is done. You can't half do this. You got to get it done. And the time for talk has ended. Everybody, the president gave them 60 days. You better sit down and start talking, because at the end of 60 days, all bets are off, in Trump's own words. And Israel gave them the same warning. You got 60 days, or else all bets are off. Well, on the 61st day, that's when Israel started with their campaign of eliminating Iran's ability to create nuclear fissionable material to the extent of being able to make bombs. Yeah. So, they're about 10 hours ahead of us. So it's getting into the evening hours. I think it's a 24-hour, their sorties are 24 hours a day. There's no sleeping in Iran. And will Iraq come in there to help them? Well, they better not, because then Iraq will have a world of hurt. Because Israel's taking no prisoners. They are going to eliminate Iran's ability to create, bomb material. There's no reason for them to be refining. It's all baloney. Yeah, there's our sun up. I'm going to do a little digital editing while we're sitting here yakking away. And I got to turn up the black point to make this somewhat similar to what I visualized. Then we're going to come over here and hit Photoshop Express. There it is. Photo edit. And we're going to look for this sunrise picture. There it is. Right there. And we're going to come over here to dehaze. And show a little of that bluey on the sky part. Yeah, that's about it. Then we have to come over here to color temperature and slide that over this way, because that looks about right. Come back over here and take a little bit of the noise out. Go over here to clarity and sharpen up the clarity a little bit. Alright, I think we're done. So we hit my picture has been saved. Okay, let's shut this down. Go back to photos and come all the way to the end. Crap. Sorry about that. It's right here. So this is the picture before Photoshop. Yeah, it was taken at 6:26 a.m. 12 megapixel image. Yeah. And there it is. Now we need to There's some red stuff there. We're just gonna, oops. I need to touch that button up there. Freeform. And come straight up. There you go. Take this down a little bit. Gives that a little more wide angle look. That looks pretty good. I'm going to do one more thing. Go back to Photoshop Express. Hit that button right there. Look at this picture right here. And we're going to put it into Transform. Balanced Auto. Yeah, not much. Okay, we're just going to cancel out of that. All right. That's our sunrise picture. You can see the ocean in the background there. That's how it looked. The sun would be coming right over here if the clouds weren't there. There you go. So battery technology seems to be. Whoops, there's this. That's the tail end of a 787 Dreamliner. Remember the Boeing? That just sank. It was taken off, and then it just sank into some buildings, and then exploded because it was full of fuel. And one guy walked away. Can you believe it? He was sitting in seat 11A. So everybody that's going to fly in the 787, they're going to try to get seat 11A, wherever the hell that is, in the Dreamliner, because he survived and everyone else didn't, including this guy's brother, who is behind him somewhere in row 14 or something, I don't know. I'm making that up. But you can see the tail. The tail of the Dreamliner is just stuck out of the back end of the building. As that thing just... I know enough about... I had pilot training when I was a young lad. I didn't get the license. I don't know exactly why I didn't. Because the fellow that was training me was a certified pilot instructor who had the license to train me to be a pilot. Now, why the hell didn't I just get to, do everything? I don't know. Maybe it was too much for me to do with my class load, or I don't know what. But I had all the training that you needed to fly the plane and to deal with the weather. Weather is a big deal. Pilots become weathermen. Really. I mean, they know about the weather just about as good as the weather guy, more than the weather guy on TV. Yeah, they become weather people. Big time. Because if you're going to fly an airplane, guess what you're flying in? You're flying in the weather. So you better know something about weather. You must know something about weather if you intend to survive being a pilot. It's one thing to go fly an airplane and submit yourself, to the devastation of a crash. And then, if you have a relative, a family member, a wife, children, whatever, or friends. Now, if you're going to fly for a fee, in other words, if you're going to charge people for tickets, so to speak, in your private plane that you're flying, that's another level of certification. But if you're just flying for the fun of it, to go from A to B because you want to go have dinner in Kansas City. I had a boss. He would sit around the room and he said, "Jimmy, let's get the plane ready. We're going to fly to Kansas City for lunch." I was in charge of the plane. I was director of operations. So he looked over and he says, "Jimmy, we're going to Kansas City for a little late lunch." So we fired up this twin-engine Saberliner. It was a 7-passenger twin-engine jet, and of course we had a knowledgeable pilot that knew how to fly that, and I flew it. Because I'd sit up there in the cockpit and, next to the pilot. He said, "All right, Jimmy, take the controls." I'd have the headset on and this and that, and we'd fly it together. I remember one time we were flying this is a turboprop, a twin-engine turboprop plane. This next story. Anyway, so I'm up in the cockpit. So any time we flew, the company jet, or we rent a jet. If I could get in the cockpit, I got in the cockpit. Why the hell not? I'd sit up there and chit-chat with the pilot, and he'd hand me the controls. I'd say, "Sure, let me have the controls." So I'd turn left and I'd turn right, make it comfortable for the passengers. Important passengers. We had most of the whole executive suite of the company was in this frickin' jet, and we're going up to. We're flying. The mission is Tampa. We're going directly to up in New Jersey to watch Alabama play a championship football game in the big stadium up there. So we had to fly into like Newark or something like that. So I'm flying this thing, twin-engine turboprop, and so the pilot turns over the controls to Jimmy. He's watching me, but I'm flying the airplane, So and he's got his back to me, and he's chit-chatting with my boss Ed, and they're chatting back and forth, and so I'm looking at these engines, and you got engine number 1 and engine number 2, from left to right. So the right-hand engine, which is right outside my window because I'm sitting on the right side of the cockpit. So I'm looking at the oil temperature is like going up from 190 to like 210 and all that, and the oil pressure is dropping, but the oil pressure is going up, and so I'm kind of elbowing the pilot. I said, "Johnny," I think we have to shut down engine number 2. He said, "What?" I said, "Well, take a look. Look at the temperature and the pressures, the oil pressure inside those engines. It's a turboprop, right? So it's a, So he said, "Jimmy, you're right. We got to shut down engine number 2. So he leans back to McCluskey. He said, "Jimmy just screwed up engine number 2. We got to shut it off." Which is not true. He was just kidding. But, I was the one that noticed the problem. And sure as hell, we had to shut down engine number 2, and flatten out the blades. So it wouldn't interfere with the airfoil. Because it was a variable pitched prop, so you turn the blades all the way this way, so the air can get by it with the least amount of friction. So you rotate the props, they're perfectly flat, and they're not spinning because you just shut down the engine, and because you don't want it to burst in flame. That's the important thing. And there was a procedure for spraying carbon dioxide. Big bursts of carbon dioxide. Pressurized CO2. It was liquid carbon dioxide. So you would atomize it in around the entire engine to cool it down. So you see this lever right here? This is the flame retardant section. And the first phase of that is to chill the engine. So just push that button while you're looking out the window and give it a blast of CO2. So I give it a big blast of CO2, and there's this huge cloud of, frozen, because it would produce a cloud of CO2. And boy, the temperature of that engine just came crashing down. I said, well, I think we're about 50 degrees, Fahrenheit, so we've got the engine chilled pretty good. He said, yeah, you let up on the CO2. We don't need the flame retardant because it isn't going to start burning at 50 degrees. So that would be the other button. So you chill it first, and then you do the flame retardant. But we don't need the flame retardant. So that's another chemical that, it's like what you find in a a fire extinguisher that you might have in a kitchen. The CO2 is the best kind of device to have in your kitchen because it sprays this CO2 real cold, and it chills. It completely, freezes the flame. So it'll stop the burning of whatever the hell's burning. And when it's all done, you only have the charred part of what the flame did, instead of all this white, nasty powder all over the place, which would take you a month to clean up. And CO2, fire retardant is a whole lot better, safer, faster, and doesn't leave a huge mess when it's all over. It's going to be enough of a mess with the fire, supposedly. So if you catch it early, the CO2 fire extinguisher is the best. They're more expensive, but they're the best. I have a 2.5 pound CO2 fire extinguisher sitting right at the edge of the kitchen, as far away from the range, which is the source of heat. So I've got it right there. You just pull that thing out of the cabinet. Pull up the nozzle part, and you got the pin. You pull the pin, squeeze the trigger. You got CO2 coming out of there, and it's frightening. It makes a lot of noise, but it puts the fire out. I can tell you that. Yeah. Every 5 years, you have to have it inspected. There's a pressure gauge on there. Make sure the CO2 hasn't been leaking. It's properly. The CO2, when it's in liquid state in a cylinder, runs about just under 1,000 pounds PSI, pounds per square inch, 1,000 PSI. So you see the gauge right up around 1,000, just under 1,000. It's about 925 PSI, somewhere around there. When the pressure is released, the liquid it boils, changes to a gas. So that's what this huge, cloud of cold CO2 comes out of that whoosh, that nozzle. Oh my God. Yeah. Anyway, so that's what you want in your kitchen. It comes in a 2.5 and a 5 pound cylinder. A 5 pound cylinder is pretty heavy. A fireman might deal with that. But just the regular schmuck that's got a mistake in the kitchen, or a pan of olive oil burst aflame for some reason. You weren't paying attention. There's enough CO2 in a 2.5 pound cylinder to put out any reasonable fire that's in the kitchen. Yeah. Any fire bigger than that, you need to get out of there. You need the fire department with 3 or 4 guys with these 5 pound cylinders to try to put it out. A fire hose with water is not what you want to do, because that destroys the friggin' apartment. I'm thinking about a multifamily on the 8th floor in my apartment up here. We don't want a big fire hose. They got fire hoses, in every hallway, but you don't want to use them if you can avoid it. Yeah, they have a separate pressurized, water system with hoses and nozzles, to attack fires, to keep the building from burning down. You can put the fire out with a CO2 cylinder, and God bless you. By all means, do it. Anyway, so we can see the tail end of that Dreamliner. We're up to 240 people, or now 242. There was one survivor from the 242 that were on board, and there were a number of people on ground that were consumed by this fire. This stupid. So, when you look, anyway, so circling back to my insufficient pilot information, my insufficient pilot training, I'm going to render some kind of a guess on what I could see from the videos that they, you don't see any more videos of this, but I watched some videos, the ones that they showed, right after the crash. The news cycle has moved on to other things now. Like Israel and Iran. That's huge. But anyway, when I was watching these videos, the flaps, there's a thing called the flaps. And you want the flaps at like 35 degrees. Those are the part of the back end of the wing that is supposed to be curled down so that the wing has more of a curvature to it, and the flaps extend out, so it actually makes for a bigger wing. It has from front to back, the wing, adds, let's say a couple, like 18 inches of more wing all along the whole surface there. And the flaps were up. It didn't look like the flaps were extended. Well, you need the flaps. So without the flaps, you can't get enough airfoil. You put that thing, you get that airplane up to, you go from 0 and you turn on those GE engines and you throttle them up to 90%, 95, 92%. You don't push them all the way to 100%. About 90, because you're running down the runway, and it's a big, that's 787. That's a huge aircraft. You got 250 people on board, and you got all this equipment, and you have all the weight of the fuel, the weight of the people, the weight of their baggage. It's 500,000 pounds, of stuff that's going from 0 miles an hour. And that's about it. It's about 200, 220, something like that, 180, depending on whether there's tailwinds, forward winds, side winds. Let's just say 200 miles an hour. So it's running down there, and then all of a sudden it goes into rotation, and it starts to lift up. And it got up to about 600 feet, and it just kind of like sank back down right, onto, so they ran out of runway, and it's up at around 600 feet, which is, not high. It's just basically got off the ground from the rotation, and it didn't have enough lift, so it just sank back down into the earth. Now if it was a field of potatoes, it wouldn't have made such a mess. But it would come down with a certain amount of vertical force, because there was not enough lift to to keep 500,000 pounds of plane, fuel, passengers, and baggage. The flaps were not in the right position. And with the flight being only 60 seconds long, meaning they went into rotation, it took them 30 seconds to get up to speed, and then you go into rotation, which means that the nose goes up, and then the plane starts to lift. Well, it was lifting, to a certain, it couldn't get past 600 feet, because to me it looked like the flaps were in the wrong position. The flaps were retracted. They were not extended. Now, maybe it was because of the angle of the view or what I was looking at. They'll know, because those flaps are extended, with the gear, with the rotating gears that, extend those flaps. Because, when you're going 200 miles an hour, those flaps require a lot of torsional rigidity, because you got a lot of wind, hitting those flaps, and it creates a curvature of the wing, and it creates not only a curvature, but the wing is actually fatter from the front of the wing to the back of the wing. When the flaps are extended, you're adding a couple of feet of wing. It's a couple of feet wider, maybe 3 feet wider. Don't actually know the dimension. I'll just guess that it's adding 3 feet of wing all the way across about 60% of the wing on both sides. And that gives it extra lift. So that sucker keeps going up, And then when it gets up to, 300 miles an hour, they can start retracting the flaps, because the wing doesn't need the flaps when the speed gets up to 300 or 400 miles an hour. Then there's enough airfoil, there's enough wind going by the wind, there's enough wind going by the wing, so that there's sufficient lift, so there's an equilibrium. So if you're going to level out at 20,000 feet, so to speak, you wouldn't have flaps extended. They would be withdrawn. And there's computer prompts, that tell you to, it gives you warning messages, that when you get past a certain speed, meaning when you increase past a certain speed, you don't need the flaps because they need to be retracted. If they're not retracted, you can't get, the plane won't go as fast, and it will burn a lot more fuel. So it's not fuel efficient to run the plane with the flaps extended when your airspeed, is faster than 300 miles an hour. I'm plucking a number. I know you take off at about 190. So you're taking off at 190 miles an hour, but it is designed so the flaps are fully extended at takeoff. And I don't think those flaps were fully extended. Just, from what I could see. And they'll be looking at the video, you have these air traffic controllers, you have the crash team. Now India, the country of India, they have their own crash team. I don't know what they call them, but they, so they're all over this right now. Because they have to explain to the Indian government on why a commercial aircraft, with 242 people on board, are dead, except for one. By some miracle, one person walked off the airplane. Can you believe it? He had minor injuries, but he walked off. They didn't pull him out by his toenails. He walked off out of the crash. He walked through an opening, which looked like a door. When these aircraft crash, when they crash, it has a certain shape, a residual shape after or during the crash. And then, of course, it all totally disintegrates with the flames, after the crash. Well, he got out of there, right after the crash, but before all the flame destruction. Because after that, the whole plane is disintegrated. And, you look at that and say, how could anyone walk away from this? But during the crash, he had the wherewithal to get the fuck up and get up and get out of there. And he got out of there, because the plane came to a stop, if you will, albeit, burning like crazy and a lot of exploding fuel and he found his way out of there, a little bit charred and this and that, but and ran out of there. Yep. Oh boy. Yeah. So, they're studying that like crazy. I think we sent a team over there. There weren't any Americans on board. There was like 30 or 40 British subjects, and I believe this Indian descent. I think this one passenger was an Indian descent citizen of England. He had an English passport. So he was one of the 40 English passengers, meaning from England, a British subject. He was not in India. He was probably dual. He probably had dual, citizenship. We call that dual citizenship, where you got two passports. Your country of origin and the country of where you're living. Yeah, I had a friend of mine who was person I work with, and he had a dual citizenship. I have a single citizenship. Got my passports right underneath there. Yeah, sir. Nice thing you should do if you want to get an alternate photo ID, a government alternate photo ID, something other than a driver's license, a photo ID. There you go. There it is. There's my, see, United States of America. That's an official photo ID that was issued concurrently with the passport. It's called a passport card. You see, it says passport card on the top. I'm trying to get it so it's out of focus because this is not an autofocus lens, and I have it focused to be focusing, the middle point of this whole subject area. But anyway, you can see my passport card. United States of America. You see a picture of yours truly. There's a little U.S. flashing thing that's embedded in the card. So when I go through the airport, domestic, airport, and you're standing in line, and then you show your photo ID. I use this as my ID and my passport card because that's a more secure form of identifying yourself, rather than a driver's license, which, you got 50 states, 50 driver's licenses, they could be forged, they could be that, yeah. But a passport card that comes out of the State Department, that's co-issued with your actual passport, which requires all kinds of background check and, this check, that check, rice check, wheat check. Yeah. And passport's an attractive little book, where you get your visas stamped by the country that you're going into. It's, that passport's pretty serious business. You want to make sure you do not lose your passport. You want to make sure you do not surrender your passport unless you're actually compelled to by, some police authority in the country that you're in. So behave yourself and you won't have to deal with the police from the country that you're supposedly doing business or visiting. What's your reason for coming into we're vacationing? Yeah, I hear that, vacationing. Personal vacationing. A couple of weeks, then we go home. Now we're over here to make a bomb so we can no. Yeah, no, they wouldn't let you in. They'd handcuff you and put you in a pokey. Yeah, you'd be in a world of hurt if you're going into a foreign country and I'm gonna mix up some drugs and then come back. I don't think so. Oh God, what is this? Rubio's bid to distance U.S. from Israel's attack on Iran. Yeah, well, forget that. You can't distance yourself. We're moving off topic now. There you go. Death toll for the Indian plane crash climbs to 270. Yeah. As the search teams sift through the rubble for more bodies. So you only got 242 that were in the plane, but you got 28 people on the ground that got incinerated or squished underneath 500,000 pounds of air. The engines, those engines are big. Really, those General Electric engines are huge. Those fan jets. And those suckers were spinning like crazy when they hit the ground. So, The circus have to weigh, you know, I would say 20,000 pounds apiece. All high precision, balanced. Oh, what a shame. Yeah, the equipment loss, human loss is one thing, and the equipment loss is also something that's terrible. But there's an equilibrium with those airplanes when you take off. We're going to turn to the subject right now, too. You ever hear about this software stuff where you're going to get rid of a boyfriend or something? You got a nice family picture right here, but you got that other asshole, that you divorced. Well, you see that picture of 5 nice people on Segways? Well, there was another person right in the middle there that I neatly deleted. Because it's Robin's ex-husband. I took him out. And now I sent this picture all over to everybody, and no one noticed that he's not in this picture. But there is a 6th person that I deleted from the photo, and you can see the remaining 5. There's Marilyn on the left, there's Jimmy, Robin, Daniel, and Brennan, going from left to right. Yeah, we flew up to Washington in 2017, I'm gonna guess, and she gave us a Segway tour. She spent $600 or $700. Let's say there's 5, 6. There's 6 of us, so let's say it's $700 for 6 of us. It included her husband, and her then husband, who's now not husband, which is why I took him out of the photo. We didn't get along. He was. Anyway, so we had this Segway tour. There was a tour guide. See the red tag that identified, and there's a wire, and we had earplugs in. And the tour guide, who was the Segway guy, he would take us through this tour. We go on the sidewalks and on the side streets, looking at all these Washington buildings, and he'd say, "Look to your left. This is it. Look to your right." And we had like a 3-hour tour, I'm gonna guess. And then halfway through it, about an hour and a half into the tour, or an hour and 15 minutes into the tour, we'd stop for a 10-minute rest. We could go into like a 7-Eleven and get yourself a can of soda and just get off the Segway and have a can of soda or orange juice. I think I got orange juice. Yeah, and then you'd hop on it, and I tell you, those Segways are unbelievable. And the handlebar is really just something to rest your arms on. You can see the big wheels underneath, and you stand on a platform, and it's heel and toe. So you stand on that platform, and you can just stand up. You just stand up on it like it was a solid piece of wood, and just get your balance, and and you're in balance. But if you press down on your toes, that makes it go forward. And if you lift up on your toes, that makes it stop. And that's how it goes. I mean, it's just like driving a Tesla automobile. You press down on the accelerator, it goes forward. You lift up on the accelerator, and it stops. Just like driving a golf cart. But now here with the Segway, you're standing on this platform. And here's a good picture of Marilyn Sneakers standing on the rubber-based platform, and the tube goes up here, which she has her hands on, but you just rest your hands on there. You don't push or pull on that at all. Nope. Capital Segway. It was magnificent. Because, you always drive around the Capitol. You're in a car or in a cab or in this, that. But to be outside with the wind blowing in your face, and you have these earphones in, and this guy's talking about what you're doing. So you just press down on your toes. That makes it go forward. And if you press down a little more on one toe than the other, and that would make you turn left or right. So you get to feel what that's like. So it's, there you go, here's some more feet on the, so that's, maybe the handlebars where you get a little bit of turning. But it's not a problem. You immediately get to figure out how it works. It works very nicely. See, there's Brennan. He's just got one hand on the handlebar because he's got a cigarette in his hand right there. He's since quit smoking. Matter of fact, 1, 2. There are four of the 5 of us that are not smoking. I think Robin is still smoking. We've all quit. Of course, I had bypass surgery. That's now this trip here is, I think, pre-surgery. Yeah. And I think I had the surgery like 3 or 4 months later. Whew. I am a bypass surgery survivor. That's how I talk about myself. Whew. Anyway, so that's just a nice picture we had that I took out the guy. You've heard about this software where you can take out someone. I did it. Yeah, and you would never know. You'd have to look at the pixels real carefully. But that software is pretty good. I mean, it even created the fencing material because he was right smack in the middle there, and it rehabilitated the fence behind. And this is all like rock, that river rock that's put down. This is like a river rock driveway that we happen to be stopped on. So that wasn't any problem filling in that river rock. Apparently. Yeah, we got rid of old Sean. We took Sean out of that picture. We updated the software to our Tesla. There was a software upgrade, 25.14.9. Minor fixes, but there were a bunch of them. Do you want to install it now? This update will take about 55 minutes. Now, they normally take about 25 minutes. And it says, are you sure you want to... Your car is going to be out of commission for 55 minutes. Because once you start this software update, you can't stop it. It has to go to completion. So I hit yes. You just tap yes on your phone, and it starts installing it in the car. And it took about 35-40 minutes. It didn't take 55 minutes. Maybe some model cars it take a little longer. Okay, where did I leave off? Yep. There's the picture again. Missing Sean. Yep, there's the Christmas picture. There's Robin and Lee. Number one son on the right and Robin on the left. There's Robin, yours truly, Marilyn, and her 2 boys and our 2 boys. Jack, Hudson, Daniel, Brennan, Robin, and Mel. We're having dinner at the 500. I think they call it the 500. It's upstairs in a building in the Boca Resort. Nice restaurant. Nice open atmosphere. You can see it's kind of nice, brightly lighted. This is like 5 or 6 p.m. So it was like sunset. But there's still light on the right side coming in the windows. I picked out, some of the pictures I like, family pictures, because it's Father's Day yesterday. So I posted this on, on a multi-person messenger thing. A tweet, not a tweet, text message, yeah. There's another one I like. There's Brennan, Daniel, and Jimmy. We're out there. And look at Daniel's got his arm out. He's got his little wood in his hand. I'll tell you what. He knew he could play golf. That little whippersnapper. He was very trainable. I'd say, oh, now do this. And he'd just do it. Yeah, it was like, are you serious? Yeah, here's this little shit hitting the ball 150 yards forward. There's another little favorite photo. There's Robin with Daniel, newly born, and Brennan and Jimmy. Yeah. This is in Boca Raton somewhere. Sitting on the floor. I don't know who took the picture. Maybe the picture was a tripod picture. Where you hurry up and sit down and count to 10. There's Marilyn. A young Jimmy and a young Marilyn. Kids, that's at least a 35-year-old picture, right? 34-year-old picture. Because that little tiny baby kid is now 34. Yep. Now here's one. That's Brennan. That's a 35-year-old picture. This kid is like 2 weeks old, 3 weeks old, sleeping on my body. They sleep and eat and sleep and eat. He slept there for a couple hours. Yeah, little monster. They're like little computers. There's Jimmy Robin with the capital between us. I didn't look very happy, did I? It was either hot or cold or bright or I don't know. I was a little cranky for some reason. There we go. I'm a little happier there. Same trip, I think. Yeah. Here's another happy picture of the four of us, Robin and Lee, at Disney World. Notice Marilyn and Lee have the same legs crossed the same exact way. That's kind of cute. Yeah. Got the Wilson shirt on, yeah. Yeah, that's
It's 10:30.
Yep. Nice picture. We had a ball at Disney. Went to Disney often. Yep, there we are. With our two little monsters. This looks like the tomato and mozzarella that I had yesterday. It made me feel I had an upset stomach I felt nauseous for like 4 hours. I never had any bathroom problems or anything, so I don't know why I was nauseous. You can't tell when you get a little older. You get all kinds of, was your blood sugar a little off? Was your, your blood oxygen, was it a little too low? The blood oxygen doesn't work on my watch anymore because they have a lawsuit going on with the company that has come up with a very similar procedure on measuring the blood oxygen level, from your wrist. And they say that Apple has infringed on its patent. So Apple is suing back, and they're going back and forth. And Apple has lost, 1 or 2 levels of the lawsuit as far as the patent infringement goes. And, Apple can't use the Apple Watch blood oxygen meter. So it's the sensors are in there, but they've turned off the software so that it's inoperative until the litigation is over. Apparently the president can do an executive order and permit the blood oxygen to be used by Americans, during this litigation. But apparently Apple has not gone to the executive office for that permission while it pursues the litigation. These are pictures of, these are aerial pictures that were telecast yesterday of the facilities that need to be bombed, if you will, to cut off Iraq's ability to purify uranium. So either somewhere in those buildings or underneath those buildings is refineries. And of course Mossad knows exactly, where to drop the ammunition. Now here's a facility that is totally intact. And this is a different facility than this one. But they're going to turn it into, so here's a little chart of where the different locations are. Not all of them, just their primary nuclear facilities. Bashar, Karun. You can see the top one, civilian nuclear site. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there are 8 of them here. This is 8 of the 20. Well, you got 8, and then you got 9, 10, 11, 12. So here they're showing 14, I guess. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. So they got 14 sites here. The red ones, the green ones, and the blue, dark blue. The Parchin. I haven't seen anything about that one, that dark blue one up top middle. Is there a couple more blues around here? I only see one blue one. Uranium mines, those are in green. The research reactors in red. And the civilian nuclear sites. So Israel's going to take out all of these. Yep, let's see. The Fordo one, F-O-R-D-O-W. That one says Fordo. That's supposedly one of them that's deep underground. Anyway, so that's what Israel's going to be taking care of. They've been systematically going after these nuclear facilities. This is what they have to neutralize. And they ain't giving it up until it's done, regardless of what the world community says. Screw the world community. This is the first real opportunity that Israel has had to stop. They've given Iran all kinds of chances to stop, including this last 60-day appeal, which we're now in the 70th day. So when 60 days is up, Israel started bombing. Yeah. That's what that chart's all about. This golf match was so weird. iPhone 17. The biggest move that the iPhone 17 this year, we have the 16 Pro Max. We're going to end up with the 17 Pro Max. The presumption is that the nomenclature for the units won't change much. They're adding one called the iPhone 17 Air, which is a thinner model, but you lose two of the cameras. So I'm more interested in the cameras than thinness. The phone is thin enough. I want the thicker one with more battery, if you will, than the 17 Air, which is thin. You lose a couple of cameras, but it's ultra thin. So if you're not into taking pictures with your phone, then the Air might be the very latest neat design. They have been working on a foldable device where it would fold in half with no seam, no apparent seam in where the fold occurs. But other than just conversation, I haven't heard anything about it. You know, there's the three cameras. Oh, I see. This here is a little device which you just stick on one of the camera lenses. You can see there's the three lenses. So here it just sticks on, you know, in a very precise way, and then it'll give you a 1200x zoom. Sydney Sweeney confesses that she is not nervous about filming nude scenes. Well, that's That's exciting news there. Spanish language misinformation on Los Angeles protests. They're screaming about something. Yep. You don't like it here? Go back to where you came from. Here's a foldable iPad design. That produces, it folds to 9-inch and opens up into an 18-inch. The result would be an 18-inch iPad once you open it. That would be, I mean, this is 15 inches here. Boy, that'd be huge. The golf tournament we watched yesterday was the worst finish you've ever watched in the history of watching golf. It was the most amazing, you know. You see this right here where Burns, Scott, Spun, and all those guys shifted down to like even par. So they all shift down like 7 places. And Spun ended up winning it. He sunk a 60-foot putt. 63-foot putt. Drained it right in the cup. Right smack in the middle. He didn't need that putt to win. He needed to 2-putt. So if he missed it close, he'd have still another putt and he would still win. So he won by 2. He didn't need to win by 2. Let's see, and McIntyre, see, number down there, tied for 9th. He ended up in 2nd place, so he came all the way up. Amazing. Jeez. Let's go. Yeah, it's like a $4 million prize. ESPN. Is that the right? All right, put the year 2025. There we go, ESPN prize. Let's see what the prize winnings were. And we'll open up at ESPN. There we go. That's not what I want.
It's 10:45.
It's $21 million purse. $4.3 million first prize. See that right there? In the 2nd place is $2.3 million. So it's $4.3 million and $2.3 million. So, you know, one putt is a $2 million putt. I mean, that's these guys. Whew, they play for Third place is $1,000,004. Fourth place is 800,000. I think Scotty Scheffler was tied for 7. So he got 600,000. It's a long way from 4 million. But that's the toughest golf course that I've seen, since I've been watching these tournaments. Wow. There we go. Now you can see the list. Scotty Scheffler, see? He got that 681,000, tied for 7th. So there were like 3 of them tied for 7th. But they all caught down to him. He was +4. So I think he played even par yesterday. What a mess. Jeez. So for the whole 4-day tournament, the winner was 1 under par. You talk about a course. There's the prize money right there. Yep. Xander Schauffele, 400,000. +6. Plus Brooks Koepka, he was +6. He's a strong player. Maybe Brooks is going to start. This guy I used to watch, rooting for, a couple years ago. Scotty became the guy I'm most interested in watching. Starting last year. So it made, let's see. So Scotty has made, about $4 million in a month. Yep. So he's in the top 7, so that puts him in, how many times you're in the top 10. So Russell Hanley, if you're in the top 10, that qualifies you for certain other tournaments that you can play in. How are you doing? Danny wants to know how I'm feeling. Because I canceled dinner last night. So they're talking maybe about dinner tonight. I don't know. It's only 11 o'clock. Too soon to tell. I'll check with Marilyn and see what she wants to do. All right. So it's 10:49. You can see the clock up there, 10:49. Got my little sound stage here. Sound and video. Got one camera here. The software I'm using is Ecamm Live. This is a simulcast. It's YouTube Live and Facebook Live. Twitter didn't happen today for some reason. Some of these networks, social networks, get a little finicky. So Twitter didn't work. Your message came up right away. Do you want to continue without Twitter? I said yes. But this Ecamm Live software manages the entire simulcast over 2 social networks simultaneously. Turn it down a little bit. There we go. So because of my MacBook here that's managing all this technology from a computer standpoint. It's pumping out the the subject material. It's being recorded. You can watch it live, or you can you can play it back from the beginning at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 a.m. We started, right around 9:05 in the morning. That's what we did. I pretty much push the buttons for 9 o'clock. And sometimes the internet will take it, sometimes it won't. And then I got to restart it, so that's why it ends up at 9:05. It's 9 o'clock, internet permitting. Streaming video and audio, yeah. So you can see me talking into my boom mic here. So light indicates that it is hot, meaning that it's a live mic. So watch what you say. Be a man of your word, just watch what you say. Hey boy. So tonight you're going to have more news about, what's going on with Israel and, Rubio and others in the administration are trying to essentially distance the U.S. government away from, the United States administration, Defense Department, President Trump, are not in the decision tree on what's going on with Israelis' fight with Iran. Iran's destiny is in Israel's hands. Now, they're going to, annihilate every smidgen of what is and what looks like the Iranian nuclear business. Now, if Iran puts up its hands and says, okay, you can supervise the destruction, and we'll show you all the minefields and everything, and you can destroy it. Or they don't come to such an agreement, and Israel just destroys it itself without a guided tour from Iranian officials. There are not many Iranian officials left. The senior, the senior 10 or 12 people are gone. They have been blown up yesterday and the day before and the day before that. So there have been 4 days of bombing in which the senior people, in the overhead of the Israeli nuclear endeavors, anyway, so as Rubio is trying to distance U.S. the government, their connections that are undeniable. Officially, we're not in the fight. We've lost no soldiers, to date. And in the fight, in the wartime, we are providing moral support and munitions support. That's it. U.S. is not pulling any triggers for anybody. They fight their own wars. Listen, you all have a nice day. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.